We were burning about $2 million a month.
I'm only going to listen to someone so much until I burn my hand on the stove.
If you're going to quit smoking, just stop like right now.
You're conquering all these countries, US, UK, Singapore. You're really pushing the boundary there.
Legit, probably 10 years for us to really codify and know what we were doing. My learning of building out this company has been there's like literally never been a silver bullet.
Today on Never Not Building, I'm joined by Tim Fung, the CEO and co-founder of Airtasker, one of Australia's biggest startup success stories. From launching in Sydney back in 2012 to expanding internationally, Airtasker has transformed the way we really think about getting work done. Tim's journey spans investment banking, co-working offices, and now building a marketplace that connects millions of people. We'll dive into what it takes to scale a company across markets, what he's learned leading through the ups and downs of startup life, and how he continues to push the boundaries of what's possible. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, Airtasker being, a global sensation, an Aussie-born brand, so it's great to have you. It's an awesome brand. A lot of people that I know, especially myself, use the brand, so thank you so much for coming on. It's a cool story. Back in 2012, I believe you started the business. In the very early days, I heard you were doing your own thing. You were doing tasks yourself, like any cool startup story. Tell us how that went down.
So my co-founder John and I started the business. We were actually working at another startup, which we were the first two employees of, called Amasim, which is like a mobile telco
Massive business
brand. So yeah, we were doing that, and then we would just talk every day in the kitchen about doing our own thing because we're like, man, like watching these founders build something, I was like, holy crap, like you can just build something, and watching them do it. And it turned out they were like an incredible world-class founding team, the Amasim guys. But yeah, John and I wanted to start something. We always envisioned it to be like an open marketplace. So we didn't want to, become an employment agency type model. We wanted to set it up like, I guess, the YouTube of local services. Anyone can post, anyone can do their thing. That turns out to be really, really freaking hard to do because you kind of, coming into an empty field and saying, hey, everyone, we want to start a dance festival, but we're just in an empty field. So how do you do that? So one of the things we did is we would go out and do a lot of the jobs. Like if we'd see them get posted up and no one was jumping on them, in good time, we would like basically fake it till you make it. We'd get on there like, I'm your trusted tasker ready to go. And people probably didn't know, I did a KFC delivery a few times, at 10 p.m. at night. And Jono was opening and closing retail stores for people. And but that was all part of the fun. We look back on it fondly.
Yeah,
it was hard at the time though.
Yeah, I have to take my hat off to you guys because even when I first started my business initially, it's the cool stories you look back on, right? Like me changing an invoice number from number 3 to 4,073. As a matter of fact, my business partner actually sent out manually the first invoice, and in the invoice he put the wrong BSB and account number.
Yeah,
and they're like, "We're trying to pay you." I'm like, "You idiot! What are you doing?" So they're the stories you really love.
Yeah, at the time they were stressful as.
Yeah.
But I guess when you get older or whatever, you're like, those are the memories of your life.
They're the memories.
Yeah.
Why did you go down this path? I mean, obviously, even talking about my business, I worked for a competitor. I started the same business. I look at people that start something that hasn't existed yet. Was that something that was exciting for you, building something that didn't even exist and creating your own product? Because obviously there's a lot more risk to that, right?
Yeah, we were actually like pondering a whole bunch of different business ideas. And one of them was like this thing that had to do with like marketing using QR codes and all that. And long story short, I remember we were like tying ourselves in knots going like, how are we going to make money out of this? How are you going to monetize it? Why would people come and use the product and all this kind of stuff? And we actually ended up abandoning that idea, which turned out to be a really good thing. And the lesson from that was, I think when you're building something, you want to have like a real belief in the fundamental value that it creates, that people actually want it and will use it. And with Airtasker, I think that was always really true. We're like, we have no idea whether we will be the people who can successfully build this, but we're like, there are all these jobs out there that people need done that they cannot find someone for. Like if we could solve that problem, like just say, hey, you need someone to help you pick up those boxes. This person over there is willing to pick up those boxes and we can be the conduit to that. We're like, fundamentally, that's going to be useful. And I think I know it sounds like really like a cliche, but I think if you know that what you're doing is useful, you can have this sort of resilience to go, well, someone's going to build this. We can be the people who build it versus question. You know, I guess if you're like in a, I don't know, a shared trading arbitrage app or whatever, you're like, do people need this? Maybe they don't need this. You know, like it's hard to know where you kind of fit in. But we were like, people need jobs and people need people to help them do stuff. So if we can do that, it's just a really simple, fundamental value creation kind of thing.
Did you test the market before you created the app, or was it a sort of a chicken before the egg thing? How did you get to that point where you're like, this model is actually a working model? Because you tell me the idea, I'm like, mate, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Like I moved
in retrospect.
Yeah, in retrospect.
Yeah.
I'm like when I moved to Dubai, there's an app for everything.
Yeah.
It's out of control.
Yeah.
Like you want something delivered, you get it in 12 minutes. Now, when we're talking about the Australian market, it's a lot more complex. Amazon hasn't pushed really hard here because there's such a big space. It's hard to deliver things in the same day. It's hard to deliver things quickly. It's expensive. Did you ever question that about the Australian market?
So we built Airtasker intentionally as like this open community marketplace thing. We didn't kind of go down like we're going to be the Uber for services route, which would be involve you sort of defining the types of jobs that you're going to do, set the prices for them and try to sell them. No, we said, no, we're just going to let customers ask for stuff and we're just in general, and we're going to let taskers, tell customers how much they would charge in general to do stuff. And at that level, I think one of the powerful things is that we don't decide how people are going to use Airtasker, they decide. And what that means is that every market you go to needs it in one way, shape or form. And the tasks that emerge and get done is sort of dependent on what people want. So for example, like we thought that the average task price on Airtasker was going to be $15. That was our original Excel model, was like, and in hindsight, we were completely bonkers, because if it was $15 a task, you'd have to do a crap ton. Like you'd have to literally do a crap ton of tasks to make that work. But that is what we thought. And then initially from day one, it was about $70 a task. And I think the self-regulating thing was that when people would put up a task for like $10, no one would be willing to sort of travel half an hour for $10, but they would travel half an hour for maybe $70. And so that sort of like worked itself out. And I think it's a bit like how YouTube, people basically worked out what would work and not work based on trial and error. But importantly, YouTube doesn't decide what videos are going to be successful. They just let you post up anything, and then it's users work out, which videos are going to go viral.
Correct.
And I think that's the power of a platform business is you're sort of empowering others, but at the same time, you're kind of learning from what they want rather than trying to tell them what they want.
Yeah, I think the problem is a lot of young entrepreneurs now, they think they're just going to start something and it's going to work. It's never like that. So when did you find, was there a time where you're like, okay, this has got legs?
I'll tell you what. So it was an incredibly hard business to start and totally stressful. I wouldn't really recommend it to people unless you accidentally find yourself in it. But it was so stressful for probably 6-7 years of like just every week trying to make a number bigger than the week before and just trying to refine things, trying to just raise enough money to stay alive. And I really mean that. Like it was, my wife always says like we used to go on like, we'd go on a holiday, but I wasn't really on holidays. Like I'm just thinking about how am I going to hit this number next week? And when you're in like a network effect business, you're kind of terrified that the network might start going back the other way. Like if you've got a party, and it's kind of a lot of people at your party and then suddenly, a few people go home, you're kind of like, is this party getting bigger or is it not getting smaller? Yeah. And it was very, very hard. I think the moment where we felt some sort of relief was in about 7 years in. And it actually happened, because of a crisis. Basically, we were burning about $2 million a month by this stage because we were like, raise, burn, just got to make this party bigger, get bigger. And then when we were trying to raise a round of like $50 million or something, which didn't seem like that much money back then, we couldn't do it. And then we looked at our bank account and we're like, okay, so we're not going to raise this money. We've got about 5 months of runway left. What are we going to do about it? And that's really where I think a lot of founders get made or broken is like, you're going to You're going to cut the costs. You're going to do the things you need to do to get through. And we did do that. It was very, very painful. But at the back of that, we actually ended up getting profitable in about 9 months. And we thought it was going to take like 2 years. So we were ready to like, we're just going to have to grind up the revenue, grind down the costs and all that kind of thing. But it turned out that Airtasker had built something that people really wanted. And so when we looked at like, hey, what's the right fee to charge? Should we be charging 10% or 15%? When we looked at like, hey, is this Google marketing actually legit working? Or like, we're just spamming money into Google and we don't really know for sure if it's working. Those are the main 2 dials that we looked at. And yeah, we ended up getting profitable like a lot faster than we thought, which was really good. And it was only then that when I feel like when you have a business which is making more money than it uses, that you're kind of like, okay, I guess I built something.
Yeah, it's when you're actually growing and when you finally start making money, you're like, okay.
Yeah, there's something here.
2 + 2
But for
4.
us as a network effect business, you kind of had to get to like 10,000 tasks a week to make it like, you can't actually start a network effect business and have a small one. You can't have like a small mobile phone network or, a small, telco.
Yeah,
it has to be ubiquitous or big enough.
From what I understand, especially with businesses like yours, the money's in the users, right? The money's in the platform. So, I mean, with us, we got 1,000 customers. And for us, like going to 2,000 starts getting a little bit hard. So for you guys, it's just a pure numbers game.
Yeah, the hard bit is, I guess you have to have the fixed costs and the fixed upfront investment of building a platform. But that's also a plus side on the flip side of that equation, which is once you have enough customers, you are using the same platform, but having more and more and more customers off that same platform. And so very hard in the beginning, but very, very profitable in the back end.
Yeah, cool. So there's a few of we would see as your competitors here. They're probably not as direct competitors, but the first one is Airtasker versus TaskRabbit. TaskRabbit I've never heard of. I'm assuming you have. How do you outcompete an IKEA-owned TaskRabbit in markets like the US and UK?
So TaskRabbit's going down the route of sort of setting the prices and setting the scope of jobs in their marketplace, which kind of sounds good at the beginning because you get a more consistent experience. But I think actually sort of dehumanizes and sort of standardizes all the labor rather than letting, just people choose how much they want to pay for stuff and how much they want to work for stuff. So our play is very much let the users decide rather than stepping in.
Because when I think about it, right, if I want to give someone $50 to deliver something for me and there's no one, we can just up the price. If it's a set price, it just doesn't work.
Exactly. It's kind of like a great example is actually in IKEA. I remember when we were starting out, we went and saw the boss of IKEA and he was like, how many jobs are IKEA? And we were like, we've done 35,000 IKEA jobs on Airtasker. And he was like, that's more than IKEA's done. And the reason why it was more is because things don't usually fit into a neat box. So they'd be like, I need 12 chairs assembled because I'm having an engagement party. And so the 12 chairs need to be assembled. I need it done tonight, because my engagement party's tomorrow morning. It's 7 p.m. It needs to be done. So I'm willing to pay like $600 for someone to come and do that for me. Whereas if you kind of cookie cutter it, you're kind of saying, no, you can't have that. You can't have, 7 p.m. on a Friday night. You can only have 9 to 5 on a Monday.
One size fits all.
Yeah. So I think that's why
Got ya.
it's
Makes
unintuitive, but it works.
Airtasker versus Fiverr and Upwork. For freelance or remote work, global platforms dominate. Why does Airtasker's hyperlocal in-person model win out?
So what's really interesting? First of all, a lot of tasks still require in-person, tactile things. Fixing a toilet, kind of hard to do. If
you
you're
can't
in
get AI
India
to do
or
that,
Bangladesh or something, hard to AI your toilet repair. But also what we found is there are a lot of jobs that don't necessarily require in person, but someone still wants a local. And so an example of that would be an architect, a tax consultant, an accountant. These are jobs where, there's differences between hiring someone in China who might do your tax accounting versus, say, hiring someone in Sydney who knows the local tax laws.
Got ya. Airtasker versus Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. I didn't know that Craigslist was still around, but
yeah, it is.
Anyway,
yeah, no.
People can post odd jobs on free platforms like Craigslist or Facebook. So why would they choose Airtasker instead?
It's trust and safety. So Airtasker, when you use our platform, you have to be you. You have a credit card that defines, a customer and makes sure that we can track that person down. and you have a tasker who's got a bank account with us, and so you have to be you. We then run all the secure payments, and we provide insurance if something goes not according to plan. So I think when you use Craigslist, it's like legit Wild West. And so we want to give the freedom of Craigslist, but with the trust and safety of
Because the safety is
better.
a massive thing now.
For sure. Like, I mean, on Airtasker, I see tens of thousands of jobs a week happening. We get very, very few issues. And the reason is because why would you go and cause trouble on a platform where the money's going all through us? You have to have an identity verified on our platform and stuff. Like, if you're going to be dodgy, you're going to be dodgy somewhere else.
Yeah, okay. Especially in like places like the UK and US where
Dodginess is on the
safety
rise.
so important.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I heard about being pivoted to a big corporate flyer jobs and it backfired.
Mm.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
So we were like desperate to build liquidity into the marketplace. Liquidity being like jobs and taskers and those two people meeting together. So one of the things we were like, and it was a good startup hustle. We're like, well, why don't we get in there and take on jobs for companies and post all those jobs in Airtasker? So I would go around to like real estate agents who were doing letterbox drops for their local business, and I'd say, hey, that $20,000 job, give it to me, and then I would put it onto Airtasker and cut it up into like hundreds of like $100 jobs. And we learn a really good lesson in that, which is that is freaking hard. Like, I basically became a letterbox guy, and I'd get calls from real estate agents saying, hey, I've just found a bunch of my own flyers that have been put into a bin. Like, what's up with that?
Yeah,
I'm like, I'm literally driving out to Newtown to inspect the bin, fish the flyers out of the bin. I'm actually not joking about this, and confirming to the real estate agent, I was only like 3 flyers, and I'll make good. And it just became really hard. And it was actually a really good lesson. The lesson was, we really want to be a platform. We really want to leverage other people managing the jobs and all that. Our business is not to manage the people and the jobs. It's to provide a system whereby others can do that.
I got you. So would there be one marketing channel that you picked that really worked then, or was it just amongst everything, just a slow build?
I think my learning of building out this company has been there's like literally never been a silver bullet. Like, there's never been hey, that was the one thing. Oh, yeah, we've finally done it. High five. Let's sit back, watch the money roll in. It's always been like, you got to do a bit of this and a bit of that. We have found some really interesting tactics that have become quite repeatable and predictable for spinning up new cities.
Okay.
And that's pretty exciting. But, most of these things usually come back to hard yakka.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you work harder, things work better for you. Like, one of the big things about Airtasker is investing into our brand. And there's kind of no shortcut to that. Like, how do you build a brand that people actually like and resonates with people and that they trust and all that? And usually the answer is do good product, make good ads, be authentic. There's no real shortcut to that. There's no like magic touch to that. It's just do good work.
I've noticed it in my business and we'll get to it in a second, but whenever I've tried to expand internationally, it's been every single time it's been much harder than I thought. Yeah. No one knows you. But I'm like, why are we doing so good in Australia? Because we've done it again and again and again and again. And eventually it works.
Totally.
And I think now in this day and age with it is still short-sighted where everyone wants success immediately.
Yeah.
So even looking at your business, you started your business the same year I started mine. It takes time.
Oh, yeah,
It
for
takes
sure.
time.
And what I also found is it took like legit probably 10 years for us to really codify and know what we were doing. Like, as in, when someone would say, well, what's the main reason why your app's good? It'd be like, it took a long time to like articulate that to ourselves and know with conviction that's the thing. And, when you look at these business greats like, I don't know, like Buffett or whatever, to know, like, he knows what makes his business tick so intimately that, you can just keep doing it. But it probably took a while to get there. The guy's been in business for, I don't know, 60 years or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's probably just each decade that goes past, you learn a little bit more. And I think you're totally right about people want to expect to be a master at something really quickly. But you look at any athlete, any sport, business the same. It's going to take you 10 years, 15 years to get good at something, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to make those mistakes, right? Is it as much as I thought I was the smartest kid in the room 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Life has a way of knocking you down and teaching you a lot of things. But that comes with experience.
Yeah.
I'm only going to listen to someone so much until I burn my hand on the stove. So you IPO'd the company in 2021. We talked about it a little bit a moment ago. You had an investment banking history. Is that why you decided you knew how to raise money? Because obviously a lot of people now, they're like, should I raise money? Can I raise money? Or should I just run it myself? What was your thought process about raising money? Did you try and do it with your own cash beforehand? Did you try and borrow money off family or anything like that? Or did you go, okay, we need money for this?
Well, we did have one good learning and advantage, which was that we'd just seen the guys at Amasim and how they'd done it. And I think most of those lessons applied to Airtasker as well, which is like you needed a critical mass of users on the platform to make it work. And so we knew that we were going to need capital from day one. Like, there's no way that you could like do this thing and bootstrap it. Like, I think, for example, if you're a software company and you write code yourself, you can actually bootstrap it because you can basically just sweat equity yourself, try and sell 1 unit of software. If you make, $1,000 from that, use that money, try and get 2 units and go from that. But in like a social networky type business like Airtasker, like clearly we're going to have to do a bunch of marketing, get a bunch of people onto this thing as soon as we can. And one of the things looking back at that is there actually is a parallel to my time at Macquarie working in investment banking and this, which is building a network business is actually quite similar to building like an infrastructure business like freeways, telcos, like the physical telecommunication cables and all that, which is the first part of building out the marketplace is actually nothing to do with marketing and everything to do with you're trying to assemble a network. And so actually in the first like 3 years of us building a business, it actually wasn't about, if I spend $1 on marketing, I want to make $1.10 of profit back. It was actually more, I'm spending $1 into assembling this network because at the end of 3 years, I need to be at 10,000 tasks a week because only once I'm at 10,000 tasks a week do I have a viable network. It doesn't work. Like the thing is literally, it doesn't work when you have like one person posting a task and maybe like one tasker. That's not a network. And so that was actually a big parallel because Macquarie, you talk about like infrastructure finance. Like, how do you go build a road? You've got to think about like, what's the cost of capital for building a road? Like, you can't just use your own money and raise equity capital to do that. You have to like do a combination of like borrowing money from banks and, doing all this.
It's a bit
like,
of everything.
Yeah, you got to work out what's the cheapest way to finance building a road. And it's usually like a lot of money. And that kind of applied to Airtasker. That was one of the big problems to be solved.
$100,000 play. Now, it probably doesn't sound like a lot anymore, but if you were to start all over again, you had $100,000, what would you do differently? If you would do anything differently?
That is a really good... So what would I spend $100,000 on?
Yeah. Would you go and do a massive marketing campaign? Would you spend it building on the product?
I think... Well, we spent a crap ton more than 100K at the beginning. Yeah. So what did we actually do? We hired a lot of people very quickly and got an office very quickly and all those kind of things. And I probably would have saved that, worked from home, been a little bit less bougie and hired the very, very best, invested into the very, very best initial people to hire. That might have cost $100,000.
I was waiting to hear. I'd hire one influencer, the best influencer I could, give $100,000 and then go. You finally listed on the Australian Stock Exchange in 2021 and, on paper, you're worth absolutely many, many millions of dollars. First of all, why did you list why did you list on the stock exchange? I mean, for me, it'd be a boyhood dream to list and see your own company listed and to watch the stock exchange, every day. It's probably not as exciting as it all seems with all the reporting and the regulations. But why did you list and what happened after there? What did you need to do? Did you need to learn how to do things over time? I'm sure there was a massive learning curve for you going public.
Yeah, listing had two main benefits for us. One was that Airtasker is a brand that you want to be able to trust. Being listed on the ASX actually takes a crap load of, governance, regulation, all of this stuff that you got to go through. But essentially you're doing all that due diligence up front. you're doing all of that work to verify yourself, every system that you have, all of those things get audited. And that's kind of like a trust signal to our users. It's kind of like, hey, we're listed. So, if we're storing
real.
your money,
Yeah.
we're storing it in a place that's safe. It's been checked by a big audit firm and all that. So one aspect was trust. The second one was we knew that we wanted to scale overseas. And I think at the time, Afterpay just did this incredible masterclass of leveraging being a listed stock to be able to be super agile at saying, hey, we want to go launch in this country. It's going to cost us this much money. Here's how we're going to do it. Raise the money and then go and start delivering on those expectations. And that's a virtuous circle because then you deliver on the expectations. People go, amazing, value that company even higher. Then you can raise more money, have a next, growth vector. And I think Afterpay just did that incredibly. It's literally a masterclass in how you can take people on that journey. And like literally, it seems like everyone won out of that thing. So we were looking to do that, and I think the jury's still out, but I think it will be the right move for us, even though it does come with a bunch of paperwork essentially.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I could only imagine. It's hard enough managing my own things.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about you expanding on the international market. And when I was doing more reading and how you were expanding internationally was very, very smart. Tell me more about the equity play. So when you're expanding to the UK or to the US, you gave away some equity. Is that right? I'd love to know how that idea actually came up and how it works.
So one of the things that we discovered is that marketplaces require a ton of capital up front, predominantly spent into brand and marketing channels, but they have incredibly high cash generation and profitability once you get it up to scale. So the problem came for us is like, well, how do we bridge that gap? Tens of millions in marketing dollars to spin up a new marketplace. So put that to one side. Then in Australia, back in 2016, we did a deal with Channel 7. And they actually gave us a bunch of advertising dollars in exchange for equity in our business. And everyone thought we were crazy at the time because we were doing about $1 million of revenue and we took on like millions and millions of dollars of TV money and we just slammed it into the market. We spent about $9 or $10 million in marketing twice, like in 2 years. And everyone was like, you guys are psychos, but whatever. And what we learned from that is we were able to grow our revenue from about 1 million to 20-something million over 5 years by doing that. And once we'd got to the 20 million, we could stop doing so much TV marketing and we would still be, actually growing. And the reason is because it's a network effect business. Once you get to 10,000 tasks a week,
It's a snowball.
Yeah, people are like, well, that's the party where there's 10,000 tasks a week. So I want to be there. And it keeps growing without having to keep investing or losing money. So when we went to the UK, we're like, let's do the same thing. The way we did it is we spun up a separate company, Airtasker UK, wholly owned by Airtasker. And we said to Channel 4, which is like a big television company in the UK, we said, hey, why don't you take 20% of Airtasker UK, but give us like a lot of advertising to grow the business. And they were like, that's fantastic. Like, love that idea. And then what we said to them is in 5 years' time, we'll come back and buy your equity back. Because we're a listed company, we can buy you back, but you can turn your media money into real money over 5 years. But the way that we'll work out what the value of the company is based on how much revenue it's generating and how well we're doing on the stock exchange. And so it's like this massive win-win thing where they basically just get a share of the market value or the valuation that they create for
It's a win-win.
Airtasker shareholders. It's amazing. And from their point of view, they love it because they're like, we've got this company that knows how to do TV marketing successfully, kind of showcasing, their product, television advertising.
The business is sensational. For you guys, I've always seen it as more people just need to know about it.
Yep.
So I know that you didn't say there was one specific marketing tactic that worked well, but is it more like the billboards and the TV? Is that what's working? And has it changed with the change in sort of how people consume media at the moment?
Yeah, I think so. The really interesting thing is we're like super contrarian on marketing channels, and when I kind of think about it, I feel like that's kind of the key to marketing because you kind of want to go where everyone else isn't. Like if everyone's advertising in that spot's probably going to be pretty expensive. and you're probably going to be, paying a lot. And so our viewpoint is that one thing that's really important to invest in is into brand, and actually that traditional, broadcast mediums like outdoor TV, radio, podcasts, all of that is actually a better buy for us at the moment than, say, Google, Facebook, Insta, TikTok. Now, obviously, there are some cases where people can do amazing stuff on those channels. And I think if you have a business which requires precise consumer targeting, like I always kind of think, like, if you sell, a medical product to Indian exchange students or something, you're kind of like, okay, you probably can't advertise on TV because it's too broad.
Yep.
But for a broad thing like Airtasker, we think we get a much better deal doing the broadcast route than the sort of precise digital marketing route. But it does take a minimum sort of scale to go and do it, and that's why it's hard.
Money.
Yeah,
I got you. Before we get, because that's an interesting point. Before we get onto that, I want to talk about COVID, because COVID affected a lot of businesses.
Yep.
But being a business like yours, I'm sure it had a profound effect.
Yep.
You were expanding to the UK around the same time, is that right?
Yep.
Number one, how did it affect your business? And like, was there a point there where you're like, because I'm sure there's many fixed costs that you have as a company, whether you started to worry? And number two, what was it then like in the UK? Did things change? Did things get delayed? You're like, stuff it, we're pushing through anyway?
Both. Big rips on both. So I think in our Australian business, which was the bulk of our business at the time, was we saw about a 30% drop, like, week on week when lockdowns got announced. And we're like, okay, we're toast. And I remember actually formulating a plan based on 50% drop, 60% drop, 70% drop, because basically we're like, well, how many people are going to want to get their house cleaned when COVID is around? What it actually ended up happening is we sort of dropped 30%, but then we started growing again. And we're kind of like, what was the learning was, because we're a platform, users determined how they were going to use our platform. And actually in a time of like a lot of change, people were like, oh, I need I want to have a fitness trainer for all of my staff, on a Zoom call. So like suddenly there's a job, people going like, hey, I need Zoom fitness trainer. People are like, I need home IT because, suddenly everyone's at home. So I need you to set up a standing desk. I need you to set up, my audio, my podcasting things, all this kind of stuff. And so quite literally, we started to accelerate out of that. And the big learning was the users decide, not us. And that's how we knew the business was going to be quite resilient to change and stuff. Because imagine if we had to come up with all the ideas, that'd be really, really hard.
Yeah, leads me to a point. Did I hear something of someone putting an ad out about naming their baby?
Yeah, like this kind of crack stuff. And I'll tell you what is that is actually the thing that I love most about the business is it's other people coming up with the creativity, not us. And so yeah, we got all sorts of stuff like that. We got, I want a Prince Harry lookalike so that I can take the piss on Jubilee Day in the UK. We've got a colonoscopy escort. Like I'm going for a colonoscopy. I just want someone to like walk with me to the hospital because I'm nervous about going through this thing. We've got clear the negative juju out of my house is a classic LA thing. Like spiritual stuff. Mime artists in LA. Apparently the it thing to do now is when you're having a cocktail party, it's like, I don't want to have a band or something, I want to have like a mime, so hiring mimes. But I think that the power of the platform is all of these different, is consumers come up with the content, not us.
I can imagine someone in COVID being like, I've got plenty of money.
Yeah.
What stupid thing could I do?
Shopping, like, honestly, there were things like online shopping. And the power of Airtasker is anything that's not completely standardizable and commoditizable, Airtasker is the place for that. So if you wanted like a standard shopping delivery, you could use Uber Eats or you could use, Deliveroo or whatever was around at the time. But if you were kind of like, hey, I need you to go to Aldi and then can you also go to Bunnings and get me a few, whatever, like plastic bags from my garbage bin or whatever, and then come over to my place and drop it off on the stairs, because I don't want to see anyone during COVID.
More targeted.
Yeah, it's like we're the only guys that can help you with that. And that's sort of the power of our platform.
So what did your revenue, did you just see it, was it just more of a gradual thing or was it like, boom?
Well, it would basically be that they'd announce lockdowns, we'd see a drop.
Yep.
And then it would pick back up as sort of the creativity started to evolve. And then lockdowns would come out and we'd just go turbo. And a lot of that was actually catch up. People would be like, oh, well, I didn't get my windows cleaned for like 6 months. And now, fuck, I better get my windows cleaned.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a lot of that catch up was pretty good for us as well.
Big F1 fan, big motorsport fan. I've seen the jacket. I've came out a few days ago that you guys are sponsoring an F1 team, but more importantly, you are designing a helmet for the guitar F1, if I remember correctly.
That's right, yes. Well, it's actually Liam and Isaac, the Formula One drivers from the team, who have posted a job on Airtasker to design a helmet for their
That's
victory.
right. Yeah, that's right. So tell me a little bit more about that, because that's freaking sick. Yeah, I'm a big motorsport fan too.
Yeah.
Number one, can you get me tickets? And number two, tell me more about how that.
First of all, Formula One is really something that gives me hair stand on the back of your neck. And I think it's because when you look at people just doing their thing at such an insane level and giving a crap about it and putting in so much effort to do it, it's honestly the most inspiring and motivating thing. And I actually feel similarly when you see an orchestra playing and that person has trained every day of their lives to be like, I'm going to be the best violinist. And in Formula One, it's not just the drivers doing that. It's like everyone in the team. Like the aerodynamics engineer, they give a rat's. They weigh the stickers on the car.
It doesn't surprise me.
They weigh the stickers because when you put a livery on a car, they're like, mate, that livery weighs 1 kilo more than a thinner sticker on the car. And they're like, that's totally making a difference. Like, because 1 kilo of weight around a corner, they're like, yeah, that's about 100th of a second. You do that 60 times in a race, you just cost us a few seconds. So basically the way that it came about is we had done all these media deals in the UK and the US. We were like promoting Airtasker a lot and we're like, how can we find something cool to talk about, through all of our media? And so the one of these Hollywood agents is pitching me Formula One. And I actually initially said to them, no way I can do this because I'm such a big fan. My board all knows I'm a big fan. I actually look like an absolute chump if I go to an ASX listed board and say, I think the grandest idea is spending 10 mil on a Formula One partnership. And so I kept saying no. And it was also a little bit like, we don't want to be surrounded by billionaires and, Rolex and Ferrari and all that. Because frankly, Airtasker is about people doing honest jobs and using their skills to, earn an income. And so we said no. But then we went to the Singapore Grand Prix last year, talking to the Red Bull team. And we're watching these people in the paddock. And there's guys like assembling the garage, hanging wall mounting TVs. There's a 6-person IT team fixing the Wi-Fi to make the car, because you can't turn on a Formula One car without internet connectivity anymore because all the engine mappings and stuff are happening, back in England. So you literally can't start the car without Wi-Fi.
Wow,
so they're like, you don't even think about these things, but like, yeah, obviously we have to have like the most reliable Wi-Fi system ever.
Yeah.
So we're seeing all these people doing these little jobs and we're kind of like, that's what Airtasker is about. It's about people taking their skills, their craft, the tasks they have to do and taking them to the next level. And that's what our partnership's all about, celebrating the people, doing the tasks, at the highest level and using their skills at the highest level.
That's so awesome to hear because it is about the, the average Joe, the guy that wants to give it a crack, the guy that wants to earn $50, $100 on the side again and again. So I actually didn't even think about that.
Well, so where you'll see Airtasker's logo, it's quite funny because we sort of went to the team principal of the Racing Bulls team, and he's like, okay, so we're gonna get the drivers to this. I'm like, we're not gonna really sponsor the drivers that much, And they're like, okay, we can have these stickers on the car, like this is where you could be positioned and stuff. I'm like, we're not gonna do that stuff. They're like, what about that guy holding the toolbox who's walking to the grid with the, to set the car up? And we're like, can we sponsor that? And he's like, I guess so. Like no one's really asked us that. We're like, we want a huge sticker on that, And so you'll see Airtasker on all the toolboxes in the pit lanes. So where the pit crew really does their thing. We are, in the garage. But it's where the people who are doing the jobs are, as opposed to the glitz and the glamour of, standing on a podium.
Never to 10. So rate from 0 to 10, the founder's clichés. So move fast and break things from 0 to 10.
8.
It's all about the hustle, sleep when you're dead.
8.
I was going to say 22.
That's
Don't
actually
sleep.
legit, yeah.
Focus on growth at all costs. Profitability can wait.
5.
You need a co-founder to succeed.
5. I think, yeah, 5.
It's important.
Yeah, it's important.
Startups are a young person's game.
3.
Anyone can do it, right?
There is an advantage of being young, which is like, there are some advantages, but there are some pretty massive disadvantages. You know, like you don't know shit.
Yeah, that's pretty crap. Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
2.
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
4.
Fake it till you make it.
4.
We've been there.
You do a bit of it.
Great founders are born, not made.
Probably 6.
And if you build it, they will come.
6.
Cool. You've been doing this a long time. A lot of people, especially in this day and age, they're getting tired, they're getting sick, you know, they can't keep a lot of focus for a long time. It seems like you're still very passionate about this business. What is it? Like, what is it? Is it just you wake up every day and you're like, because I understand you have interest in many other businesses and that's all exciting, but this is probably, you know, your day-to-day of what you do. What is it that keeps you excited about this business, about keep wanting to push forward?
So I'm really big on CEOs not saying like virtue signally like cliches and stuff. But I can say as a non-cliche with a high degree of authenticity, the thing that keeps me going is the fact that we're not coming up with all the services on Airtasker. Like we're helping customers help taskers create jobs and income, and the creativity, all the things that are happening, it's not us doing the thing. So every day is kind of different, you know, like all the content that's coming through, all the jobs, all the stories, it's not about us, it's about someone else. And I think you're right. It would, for me, it would probably get really, you know, at some point you'd probably tap out if I was, you know, selling watches or if I was selling shoes. I'd probably be like, okay, cool. I've kind of, you know, a great business, but, you know, it's not that intellectually stimulating necessarily, for me at least. But for me, like helping other people, you know, unleash themselves, that's cool. Like every day that's cool. And when people come and tell us like, hey, I earn $100,000 a year doing Airtasker, or I've spun up a marketing agency, you know, getting clients through Airtasker, or, you know, there's a woman who was like, you know, I was a victim of domestic violence. I couldn't get a normal job. You guys helped me just get a job, and then I've turned that into like working full time and all that kind of thing. You're like, that's like legit.
Actually
really, really
changing
cool.
lives.
It's actually sick.
Yeah, that's so cool. So what's next? What's next for Airtasker? You're conquering all these countries, US, UK, Singapore. You're really pushing the boundary there. Is it just go after every single countries that you possibly can? Is there a way you look at certain countries? Is it based on population? You know, what is it? And what's the next for Airtasker? Where do you want to see the brand in the future?
So we're doing a couple of things. The first is we continue to invest a lot into the product, like the technology platform. And the thing that we're really working on at the moment is this idea that once you meet someone on Airtasker, right now there's no real facility for you to keep working with that person on Airtasker. It's sort of like, in that sense, a dating agency. Yeah, it's like, cool, dating agency, you guys connected, and then, you know, Airtasker's out of the picture. So one of the things that we're doing is building like a rebooking feature, which has like much lower fees. So we charge like 1.9% on these ongoing jobs, and we're creating a way for taskers to be able to like maintain a business on Airtasker by building up a client book and managing them all through Airtasker. So I think that's like super, super exciting for us. We're of course investing into the brand. So things like the Formula One partnership. We got some great sort of content partnerships with a lot of our media partners. So of course investing into the brand, but then as you said, scaling into the US and the UK, and that is like a city by city play. And so what I spend most of my time working on is like, what is that literal playbook of getting from 0 to 1, like solve the chicken and egg in Chicago, Denver, Washington, DC, you know, every city by city by city by city, how are we going to do that? And refining those tactics down to, you know, I want it to be like a precision thing that we can predictably go, you know, I'm going to invest exactly $1 and I know that exactly this is how much of a network I'm going to build by the end of it.
Like, how do you, how do you manage that? Like it seems like a crazy thing that you've got all these countries. Is it like I need to wake up at 3 o'clock every morning to speak to every person that's leading the country? Like how is that even possible?
Partially it is that actually. And that is actually the problem with having people in London, LA and Sydney. It's quite literally 24 hours. So, you can expect at any time of the day something could go wrong. But there is some aspect of, having to just do a lot of hours and be flexible. And, that's pretty hard because we've got a 2-year-old as well. So that's pretty challenging. But I'm getting actually a pretty good balance on that. There's also a lot of travel. We spent a lot of time in London this year and a lot of time in LA. And there is just a bit of hard yakka of it's hard to understand your customers without, being there with your customers are. And a lot of it, I guess, is just trial and error still. We're still trying things. And, as much as I'm kind of like, I want it to be this precise thing of $1 in, is this out? That's sort of what it looks like in the slide deck. And the reality is people working their butts off behind the scenes to be able to make that happen. Yeah,
awesome. Okay, so before we finish up, there's some young entrepreneurs listening to this podcast. And obviously it's called Never Not Building, which will always continue to build and grow. Is there advice you'd give to the younger generation coming up about wanting to start a similar business, although not exactly the same? Is there something that you think you've learned that you can give advice to? I mean, the way I've always seen it is I can't turn off. I need to work 20 hours a day, and it's just, you'll get it. All my friends and everyone that I know that's super successful says the same thing. They just keep pushing. If it doesn't work, they change.
Yeah.
Is there something that you've learned along the way being a very unique business, building a household name that you can give advice to someone who wants to go ahead and push that boundary?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I find is that people spend a lot of time sort of at their desktop trying to work out a plan and coming up with this really precise plan of how they want things to play out. And I generally find that most people index too much to planning versus doing, i.e., sitting at your desk and planning is pretty much just like using your own brain and sort of going like just iterating. Just thinking, right? Yeah. The thing about doing is you're actually getting the real world data. And that often gets characterized as, you're just, you're not spending enough planning and you're not prepared enough. But I'm actually like, most of the time when you're out there doing, you're actually working out what actually works. So in other words, you're collecting data as you're doing stuff. And you can't collect that data sitting at a desktop. So I guess my advice is mostly, for most people, is just get it there and do it. Like, don't spend too long planning because you're probably just overthinking it. It's like when someone says to you, you're going to quit smoking or vaping or whatever in 3 weeks' time. You're like, nah. Like, if you're going to quit smoking, just stop like right now.
It's like New Year's
just do
resolution
it right
stuff,
now
right?
and learn if you can do it or not.
Yeah.
Anyone who tells you they're quitting smoking in 3 weeks is probably not quitting smoking.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing is that, like, honestly, everyone that I've ever spoken to who's built a company, they have this idea. I have this one friend who's built multiple multi-million-dollar company, is exactly the same. I'm going to try it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And probably 85 to 90% of the time now he's worked out the formula.
Yeah.
And everyone I speak to is saying the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's also like, trust your intuition. Like, I think a lot of people are looking to get told what to do. They're looking for some data point or some Excel spreadsheet or some ChatGPT response or whatever to go, yeah, this is exactly how it's going to be successful. Yeah. And like, that is the risk. The risk bit in business, I think, is you don't know. No one can tell you. And the risk is you're going to look like a muppet if you go out and try something and it's wrong. And I think, to your friend, I'm sure there have been times where launch stuff doesn't work. You feel like a bit of a muppet and you learn from that.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example is that he launched a product when NFTs were pumping.
Yep.
It's like you want to keep pushing, but like, is the thing going to come back?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah, maybe. I'm certain it will, but probably it might. Is it going to be 10 years away, 15 years away, etc.?
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming out. Hopefully there's a lot of people that learn a lot from this podcast and a lot from you. You're an inspiration to many. Congratulations on building an awesome brand out there. And I wish you all the success in the world.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. That was Tim Fung, CEO and co-founder of Airtasker. I'd loved hearing his perspective on scaling internationally, building resilience as a founder, and the lessons he's learned along the way. If you found this conversation valuable, share it with a friend or founder who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to Never Not Building for more conversations with leaders who are shaping the future of business.